So, I found something very disturbing for you today, Peyton. I've been reading about this case from 1982 that, completely changed how we get our medicine packaged, you know?
Oh, you're talking about the Chicago Tylenol murders, aren't you? That's definitely one of those cases that really shocked the nation. And it's actually still unsolved to this day, which is it's kind of incredible when you think about it.
Wait, seriously? I had no idea it was still, um, unsolved. That's actually why I wanted to talk about it on the door today. It just seems so strange that someone could, poison random strangers and just get away with it.
Yeah, it's one of those perfect crimes in a way, you know what I mean? Like the killer managed to murder 7 people without ever being caught or even really identified. And the thing is, this case fundamentally changed consumer safety in America. Like, those annoying seals you have to break through to get to your medicine, those exist because of this case.
Oh my god, I never realized that. So, can you walk me through what actually happened? Because I've heard bits and pieces, but I feel like there's so much more to the story.
Absolutely. It's honestly one of the most fascinating and disturbing cases in American history. And it all started in September 1982 when people in Chicago started dying after taking something they thought would help them feel better, not kill them.
So, what exactly happened? When did people start getting sick from these Tylenol pills?
Well, it all started on September 28, 1982. A 12-year-old girl named Mary Kellerman, she just woke up not feeling well, you know? Her parents gave her extra strength Tylenol for what they thought was just like a normal cold symptom, and then she collapsed. By the next day, she was dead. It's just absolutely heartbreaking.
Oh my god, that's terrible. A 12-year-old just from taking regular Tylenol?
Yeah, and the thing is, she was just the first victim. That same day, on September 29th, 6 more people took contaminated Tylenol capsules and died. There were 3 members of the same family: Adam Janus, who was 27, his brother Stanley, who was 25, and Stanley's wife Teresa, who was just 20 years old. They all took pills from the exact same bottle.
Wait, all from one bottle? How did that even happen?
So what happened was, Adam took the Tylenol first and died, right? And then when his family gathered at his house after his death, his brother and sister-in-law both had headaches from, all the stress and grief. So they took Tylenol from the same bottle that was just sitting there in Adam's house. And they had no idea it was what had just killed him.
That's absolutely horrifying. Were there others?
Yeah, 3 more people. Mary McFarland, who was 31, Paula Prince, 35, and Mary Reiner, who was 27 and had just given birth a week earlier. They all took Tylenol from different bottles and died from cyanide poisoning. The authorities figured out pretty quickly what was happening because, a nurse named Helen Jensen went to investigate the Janus deaths and found that Tylenol bottle. She turned it over to investigators who smelled the capsules and detected this, almond scent, it's characteristic of cyanide.
How did they connect all these deaths so fast?
It was actually really good detective work, you know? When they tested the capsules from the Janus family's bottle, they found that 4 of the remaining capsules contained 3 times the lethal amount of cyanide. And they realized the bottle that killed Mary Kellerman came from the same lot number. At first, they just recalled that specific lot, but then they discovered contaminated pills from different lots, and they realized this was way bigger than they initially thought.
So, were these all from the same store or something?
That's what makes this so frightening. The contaminated bottles were found in completely different stores all around Chicago: 2 different Jewel Foods locations, an Osco drugstore, a Walgreens, a Dominick's, and even this place called Frank's Finer Foods. The investigators realized the killer must have been taking bottles off store shelves, tampering with them, and then just putting them back for innocent people to buy and use. It's incredibly disturbing.
So, with the bottles being found at all these different stores, how did they figure out when the tampering actually happened? Was it at the factory or what?
That was a really key discovery in the investigation. See, the authorities figured out that the tainted capsules were manufactured at 2 completely different locations, one in Pennsylvania and another one in Texas. And, that pretty much confirmed that the tampering couldn't have happened during manufacturing. It had to have happened after the product was already on store shelves.
That's so creepy. Someone was just going around to different stores putting poison in medicine bottles.
Yeah, exactly. The police theory was that someone was basically taking bottles off the shelves in these Chicago area stores, opening them up, putting potassium cyanide in some of the capsules, and then just placing the packages back on the shelves for completely unsuspecting customers to purchase. And they found more than just the 5 bottles that caused deaths. They discovered a few other contaminated bottles in the Chicago area later on.
I'm guessing there must have been a huge recall after all this.
Oh my God, yeah, it was massive. Johnson & Johnson, who makes Tylenol, they acted really quickly. At first, they were distributing warnings to hospitals and distributors, and they immediately halted all Tylenol production and advertising. But after more incidents popped up, there was strychnine added to some Tylenol bottles in California, they issued this nationwide recall on October 5th.
How big was this recall? How many bottles are we talking about?
It was absolutely enormous. They had to recall about 31 million bottles of Tylenol that were in circulation at the time. And get this, the retail value of all those bottles was over 100 million in 1982, which would be like more than 326 million today. It was one of the largest pharmaceutical recalls ever.
Wow, that's a huge financial hit.
Yeah, and they didn't stop there. Johnson & Johnson was all over the national media telling people not to consume any of their products containing acetaminophen. They even offered to exchange all Tylenol capsules that people had already purchased for solid tablets instead. The company really went all out to protect consumers.
It sounds like they took it really seriously.
Absolutely, and this wasn't just a US thing either. It got so serious that customs agents at airports outside the US were actually asking visitors if they had brought any Tylenol medicine with them. The FBI was involved, Chicago police, everyone was trying to figure out who was behind these killings.
So, did they ever figure out who did it? There must have been some suspects, right?
Oh yeah, there were definitely some major suspects in the case. The main one was this guy named James William Lewis. He wasn't actually caught poisoning any bottles, but he sent this letter to Johnson & Johnson demanding $1 million to stop the cyanide murders, which is, not exactly something an innocent person typically does.
Wait, so he basically confessed in a ransom note?
Well, it's complicated. When they arrested him, Lewis actually told authorities how the killer might have carried out the attacks, buying Tylenol, adding cyanide, returning them to store shelves, and, investigators found that he had this poisoning book, and there were apparently his fingerprints on pages about cyanide. But the weird thing is, he admitted to writing the extortion letter, but he always denied actually poisoning anyone.
Did they find any hard evidence connecting him to the murders?
That's the thing. They didn't have enough to charge him with the actual murders. He was convicted of extortion, though, and served 10 years in prison for that. And, court documents that came out later showed that Department of Justice investigators actually concluded Lewis was responsible, but they just couldn't gather enough evidence to charge him with the poisonings.
Was he the only suspect?
No, there was another really strange suspect, this dock worker named Roger Arnold who worked at one of the grocery stores. He told police officers that he had potassium cyanide, which is, exactly what was used in the poisonings.
That seems pretty suspicious.
Yeah, and it gets weirder. This bar owner reported Arnold to police because Arnold had been talking about killing people with some white powder. They found this book at Arnold's house with instructions on making potassium cyanide. And he even had connections to one of the victims. He had worked with Mary Reiner's father at a warehouse. But despite holding him multiple times, police never actually charged him with the Tylenol murders.
So what happened to him?
This is where it gets really dark. In 1983, Arnold, he actually shot and killed a completely innocent man named John Stanisha who was just leaving a bar with friends. Arnold apparently mistook him for the bar owner who had reported him to police. He was convicted of second-degree murder and served 15 years of a 30-year sentence. From prison, he actually said, "I killed a man, a perfectly innocent person. I had choices. I could have walked away."
That's horrifying. So neither of them was ever officially connected to the Tylenol murders?
Right. In 2010, they collected DNA samples from Lewis and even exhumed Arnold's body to test his DNA, but neither of their DNA matched what was found on the tainted bottles. So despite all these investigations spanning decades, the case remains unsolved to this day.
That's incredible that after all these years, we still don't know who did it. But I'm curious, what kind of impact did these murders have? I mean, besides terrifying everyone who takes medicine.
Oh my God, the impact was absolutely massive. Like, these murders literally changed pharmaceutical packaging forever. Before this happened, you could just, open a bottle of medicine and the pills were just sitting there. There was no way to tell if someone had tampered with them.
So all those safety seals and packaging we see today?
Exactly. All of that came directly from this case. After the Tylenol murders, the pharmaceutical industry completely revolutionized how they package medications. They developed all these tamper-resistant packages with those induction seals that you have to peel off. You know what I mean? And Congress actually passed federal anti-tampering laws, making it a serious crime to mess with consumer products.
I honestly never knew that's why we have all those annoying seals that are so hard to open.
Right? And the other big change was moving away from capsules. Because capsules were just so easy to tamper with, right? Like, you could just pull them apart, put whatever you wanted inside, and snap them back together with no obvious signs. So the industry developed these solid caplets instead. Those tablet things shaped like capsules that can't be opened and resealed.
That makes so much sense. I've always wondered why some pills are those weird oval shapes.
Yeah. And Johnson & Johnson's response to the crisis is actually taught in business schools as the gold standard of corporate crisis management. They immediately pulled all their product off shelves nationwide, 31 million bottles worth over 100 million, even though they knew it wasn't their fault. They put customer safety first, and that actually helped them rebuild trust. Within a year, they had regained their market share.
That's actually pretty impressive for a company to take that kind of financial hit.
Totally. And those triple-sealed packages we now take for granted? Johnson & Johnson pioneered those. Every time you struggle to open a medicine bottle or get frustrated peeling off those foil seals, you're basically experiencing the legacy of the Chicago Tylenol murders. It's kind of weird to think about, isn't it?
So, even with all our modern technology and DNA testing and everything, they've never been able to solve this case?
It's actually mind-blowing, right? They've reopened the investigation multiple times over the years, most recently in 2009, which was, the 27th anniversary of the murders. They even collected DNA samples from the main suspects in 2010, but none of them matched the DNA they found on the bottles.
That's wild. After 4 decades, it seems like it might stay unsolved forever.
Yeah, and what's even crazier is that they've looked at all sorts of people. In 2011, they even asked the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski, for DNA samples because, he had connections to Chicago. They're still actively investigating, but it's been over 40 years now, and the trail gets colder every day.
I wonder if we'll ever know who did it.
I honestly don't know. The FBI still has the case open, and every few years there seems to be some new development or technology they try. But whoever did this was incredibly careful. They changed consumer safety forever without ever getting caught, which is, it's terrifying in its own way.
It really is. But at least something positive came from it. All those safety measures that protect us every day.
Absolutely. Every time you struggle with that annoying seal on your medicine bottle, you can thank the Tylenol killer for that extra layer of protection. It's like this horrible tragedy ended up potentially saving countless lives through better packaging and security.
Well, that's it for today's episode of The Door. Thanks so much for listening, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for joining us on this journey into one of America's most notorious unsolved crimes. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
See you next time when we'll unlock another mysterious door into the past.